They never saw him coming. No lightning, no thunder, no scrolls carried by angels, just a man with a voice that refused to be quiet. His name was Malachi, a name that meant my messenger, but he wasn't the kind of messenger people wanted. He didn't bring comfort. He brought confrontation. When Malachi showed up, Israel wasn't in ruins anymore. The walls of Jerusalem had been rebuilt. The temple stood tall again. Sacrifices had resumed, and festivals filled the streets. From the outside, it looked like revival. But on the inside, something sacred had gone missing. The people were worshiping, just without wonder. The priests were still offering sacrifices, just without sincerity. It was religion without reverence, faith without fire. And that's when God sent him. Not a priest, not a prince, just one man with a clear voice and an uncomfortable truth. He didn't come with thunder. He came with clarity. And clarity is dangerous because it exposes what people have learned to ignore. Malachi didn't shout to entertain or to gain followers. He spoke to pierce through the noise, to remind a nation that rituals don't impress heaven when hearts are empty. He looked at the priests first, the ones leading the worship, and said, "Would you offer your governor what you offer to God?" They were bringing blind, sick, and crippled animals to the altar, calling it sacrifice. They were giving God their leftovers and calling it worship. Malachi wasn't attacking them. He was holding up a mirror. Because when faith becomes performance, sincerity is the first thing to die. But he didn't stop at the temple. He went to the homes, the families. He saw husbands abandoning their wives, treating marriage like a contract instead of a covenant. He saw justice for sale in the markets, truth traded for profit, the poor being cheated by crooked scales. He saw worshipers sing songs to God in the morning and lie, gossip, or bribe by evening. And he said the words no one wanted to hear. "You call him Lord with your lips, but your lives tell another story." The crowd stared back, offended. Some laughed, others rolled their eyes. But a few listened, because hidden among the noise was a remnant, small, quiet, faithful. They didn't argue or perform. They prayed in secret, gave without boasting, and still trembled at his name. And God noticed. Malachi said he wrote their names in a book of remembrance, because heaven never forgets those who still remember him. But the heart of Malachi's message wasn't just correction, it was invitation. He stood in the marketplace one afternoon and said, "You rob God." The crowd gasped. "How have we robbed God?" they demanded. "In your offerings," he said, "you bring him the last and expect him to bless the first." And then his tone softened. "Bring the full offering into the storehouse," he said. "Put God first and watch. See if he will not open the windows of heaven and pour out blessing until there's no room to hold it." It wasn't about money. It was about devotion, about who really sits first in your life. Malachi's message hit hard because it peeled back the layers of comfort people had built around faith. He was reminding them, worship isn't about ceremony, it's about surrender. Then one night he received a vision, quiet, heavy, but clear. A day was coming, he said, burning like a furnace. The proud, the corrupt, the indifferent, all would be like straw in that fire. But then came the twist, the line that would echo for centuries. "But for those who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings." It was both a warning and a promise. Judgment for some, restoration for others. Malachi wasn't ending prophecy with despair, he was ending it with hope. Because even in correction, God was preparing redemption. When he finished his final scroll, there were no trumpets, no applause, no grand farewell. He simply placed it among the writings of the prophets, looked toward the temple one last time, and walked away. And after that, heaven went silent. 400 years of silence. No visions, no prophets, no divine voice cutting through the noise. Just generations of people waiting, praying, and wondering if God was ever going to speak again. But silence doesn't always mean absence. Sometimes silence is preparation. Because 4 centuries later, in a dusty wilderness far from the temple, another voice cried out, not a priest or a scholar, but a man with wild hair and fire in his lungs, John the Baptist. And his message? Prepare the way of the Lord. The same fire, the same clarity, the same echo from Malachi's scroll. Malachi's voice had never really died. It had simply waited, and that's why his message still matters. Because what he warned about, empty religion, faith that performs instead of transforms, it's still happening. We build systems, we polish rituals, we say the right words, but often our hearts are somewhere else. And maybe that's why God let Malachi's words close the Old Testament, because they still open ours. The truth is, God isn't impressed by noise. He's drawn to sincerity. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for presence. Hearts that still tremble, still listen, still burn. Maybe you've been living through your own silence, praying, waiting, feeling like heaven's gone quiet. But silence doesn't mean God has left. Sometimes it means he's about to speak in a new way. Malachi was the last prophet before God went silent, but his message never stopped speaking. It was the bridge between ritual and relationship, between religion and redemption. He warned a nation that form without faith is hollow, but he also promised that dawn would come. And when it did, it wouldn't just be a sunrise, it would be the sun rising. If you're watching this, maybe this is for you. Maybe you've been giving God your leftovers, your time, your energy, your love. But the same God who spoke through Malachi still speaks through silence. The story didn't end with him. It began there. Every silence is just the breath before a new beginning. Comment where you're watching from. And if you want to see how Malachi's final prophecy points to the Messiah, check the first link below. Like, share, and subscribe. Because someone out there needs to remember, silence isn't the end. It's where hope begins.